Okay. All right, thank you everybody for coming. Just catch my breath here. So this year, usually in the fall, we do a series on something. We did one on marriage last year. We've done some readings.
Did you hit the record button?
I did. It's
okay,
recording.
all right, it's ongoing. Okay.
It is.
You did it upstairs. Sorry.
I did, exactly.
All right. Sorry.
So we've done some on like living in the modern world. One year we did a book study. So this year we're doing leadership because one of the things that our parish that we're trying to continue to foster, that has always been something fostered in this parish, is diffuse leadership. Having many people in the parish who are leading many things, right? You don't want a top-down bottleneck where everything has to go through the priest, right? I don't, and it's not good for the parish either. It's really important to have people who are able to lead and to manage projects, to be able to do that and to take on the authority and the responsibility to do those things. But you do have to kind of know some things and be able to do it well. And so I basically am hoping that through the course of this series and beginning with Carol, we will kind of improve our ability to both lead and follow. Because oftentimes that's even people, I see people here who are leading different ministries in the parish, but also then we have other times when we follow as well. And so hopefully this over the course of this series we'll kind of have 4 or 5 different sayings or sayings that guide our ministries in the parish. So tonight we have Carol Hines. Carol, actually I should say Carol Norbeck Hines. Carol has been part of this parish for a long time, has just recently moved up to Michigan.
Yeah.
So we have not seen her. And so right before you left, I think we got a bevy of some of your books, Joyful Leadership, that you had just written. And so they are there in our bookstore. And so it's really a pleasure. I know you're going to tell us quite a bit about your work and what you've been doing.
Yep.
So I'm just going to turn it over to Carol.
Well, thank you, Father. Well, it is good to be home. It's sort of odd to say. I don't know where my home is. It's only been a few months that I've moved to Michigan. But when Father announced to the DD that this was the series, I gave him a call and said, could I have help to you? Because this is what I've been studying for 40 years. Now, that's a big number, particularly for most of you that aren't 40 yet, right? You wonder how in the world has she been doing this for 40 years. So as Father and I talked, we thought it might be a good idea if I started off by giving you an overview of what my research and my study these last 4 years have taught me about leadership. And then together, we can talk about, well, what does that mean for leadership within the church? So what I'm going to try to do is talk for maybe 30 minutes, and then I want to have the next 30 minutes a time for Q&A, but more importantly, you all to discuss in sort of a small group, what does leadership mean for us here at Holy Cross? Okay? That's what I'm going to try to do today. So I thought it might be helpful because some of you who do know me may not even know what I've been doing for a living these last 40 years, and it'll give you some context for what I'm going to talk about tonight. So I'm an industrial organizational psychologist by training. What does that mean? It means I studied psychology as applied to work or as applied to the business world. My 2 focus areas within that field have been on developing leadership capabilities for corporations and helping them to create what we often call an engaging work environment, or help them create a healthy culture at the organization. And I have found through these last 40 years that these two things really form quite a synergy, with really the idea of which I've also learned is that if you don't have excellent leadership, you're not going to have a culture worth much. So really the leading part of this, or what leads this, is leadership. I've run a consulting firm for over 20 years. I call that firm Leader Know-How, because even though I really love a good model and a good theory and a good synthesis of things, I've found out through training, through facilitating leadership development, that that's not enough. As a leader, it's not enough just to know you need to have strategic vision. You actually need to know how to do that. Like, how do I actually create and how do I actually implement a strategic vision? So that's part why I called my company Leader Know-How, because I wanted to make sure in the workshops and in the leadership development capability I did, that I was really teaching people how to do something, how to become a great leader. Okay, so as that is background, let me take you on a crash course of the field of leadership. So, how many books do you think have been written on leadership? Just throw out a number. 1,000?
50,000, he said. 500,000.
So I was like, yeah, I was like, how many have been read or written on this? I think I've read about 100 in my career, and I think that's a lot. It's a lot of reading. Can't ask my leaders in training to read 100 books. So I thought, I'm going to take a shortcut right now. I'm going to ask AI. Love AI right now, answering all my questions. So I asked AI, and if you'll bear with me as I squint here a minute, here's what they said. Because I asked, how many books have been written on leadership? It's difficult to pinpoint an exact number, but estimates suggest there are hundreds of thousands of books on leadership, probably over 1 million. Leadership is a broad and popular topic in business, management, psychology, and self-development. On platforms like Amazon, for instance, you can find over 100,000 titles under the leadership-related keywords. And this volume continues to grow as new books on leadership get published. All right, so this is a massive field. Who has the time to read 1 million books? Who had the time to read 1,000 or 100 books, right? So this wasn't going to work for my approach in leadership development, to have them read a book. What book am I going to have them read? Which ones sort of have the right answer? Okay, so now, keep moving forward on leadership. I decided, well, maybe I should take a different approach. Let me start listing, when I'm reading, all the different skills these books say a leader needs. And by skills, I mean technical skills. What do they need to run a business, to lead a business, maybe even just to lead a team? I also wanted to keep a list of what are the soft skills that leaders might need to engage their people. And my final list was, let's keep track of the character traits these books mention are necessary to be a great leader. Well, how long do you think my list got? Well, here's what I did. I actually got to stump AI. I asked AI that question. Just give me a list of 50 skills, behaviors, or character traits that make a great leader. It took my computer 2 minutes to write it back to me. And I don't know if you've used AI, but it usually doesn't take 2 minutes, and I just asked for 50. I didn't ask for the whole list. So, but I got to start somewhere, right? So, what do I need to train, develop my leaders on? They gave me 20 under leadership skills. Again, by this I mean more the technical skills of leading a business, leadership attributes, and then leadership character traits. Oh no, this is too much. How am I going to get through all this in a one-day workshop? How am I get through all this when sometimes they give me 2 weeks to try to cover all this? Ain't gonna happen. So again, this field is vast. There's so much that people say define leadership. So one day, as I was doing this, I said, maybe I should be taking a different approach. And so this question came to mind. What if I looked at leadership from a follower's perspective, not from the leader's perspective? Because after all, you're not leading if you don't have anybody following after you. So this is the question that started to shape my research. And my framework was, why would anyone want to follow you? Okay, so now this is the interactive part of my presentation or my lecture here. So what I want you to do is take a moment and think of somebody that you feel is a great leader. They can be alive or they can be dead. And if they entered the room right now and said to you, hey, I've got this great idea, I want to do this initiative, would you follow me? And you would say yes, because you're a great leader. That's the person I want you to think about. Now, you are not allowed to answer my question with Jesus Christ. Okay? That's a given. We're all followers of Jesus Christ here. And oh, by the way, he's fully man, fully human, and fully God. I would like you to give me just someone who's a human. Okay? All right. Who's got one that they want to share? And I'm just going to warn you, when you share who that is, I'm going to ask you one follow-up question. So, who's got someone that they would follow if they walked in right now and said, hey, I got this initiative, I've got this thing, I want you to join. Please come follow me. Who's got a name for me?
Back when I was in Texas, I had a chaplain. His name was Robert Joyner.
Robert Joyner, okay. So tell me 3 things about Robert as a leader that makes you want to follow him.
He was super honest.
Super honest?
Right. I feel like if he told you something, like he would just, like it was the truth, 100%.
100% the truth. What he said is what he meant, always.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was super fun to kind of be around.
And fun.
Right. He would like joke all the time.
Okay.
In like a military way, so it wasn't always like crazy appropriate, but
Yeah.
it was fun.
Okay.
It increased rapport, which I thought was good.
Okay.
And he was
okay.
reliable.
And he was reliable.
Yeah.
Okay. He was reliable. Terrific. Thank you for those 3 skills characteristics that you said about this person. Okay, I need another one. Who else would you follow if they walked right in and said, please, I need you on this?
I had a boss once named Sally, who's the best boss I ever had.
Best boss you ever had, Sally. So, what was it about Sally that made it easy for you to follow where she wanted you to go?
She took the time to get to know me as an employee.
Mm-hmm.
She knew what she was talking about, and you could see the results in the school that she ran.
Wow. And you'd see results about the way she did things. She got things accomplished. Terrific. All right, we've got time for one more. Anybody got one that's not alive anymore? But wish you could meet them. And yes, I would follow them for these reasons.
I'd say my parents, but they've been gone a
Well, why your parents?
Because they raised me.
Because they
I
raised
miss them.
you. Yeah,
I've been going for mom's been dead 52 years, my dad's been dead 50, but I follow them.
you followed them because they raised you, because
Amen.
they took care of you,
Amen.
right? They
You know, it's hard to miss them. My mom's birthday was yesterday, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're still connected to them, right?
Oh, yeah,
You're still connected to them, absolutely, absolutely. All right, well, you're probably going to guess that I've asked this question a lot over the last few years about why would anyone want to follow you? And here's the two areas that keep coming up. If I try to, again, summarize or synthesize this, people want to follow someone who is a person of great character. And they're a person who believes that leadership is actually about serving your followers. It's not about power. It's not being in control. It's about how can I be of service. So again, as I categorized and listened, I kept hearing these things about why people follow the leaders that they do. All right, let me just catch up here with my train of thought here. So, my next step is then to say, okay, well, in order to build my character as a leader and be good at serving my followers, what's the know-how? What's the expertise I'm going to need to know in order to do those things? So my thoughts again kept gelling on this. And that wasn't it though, because as I began to develop this list of know-how that leaders needed to have, I wanted to ask myself another question. Because as I read through these hundreds of books written by people, I thought, why do I believe that some of these concepts are true and some of them, I'm going to throw out? I think this is not a good leadership tool or a good leadership concept. And this is where really my book, Joyful Leadership, was started, was the idea of not only did I want to share the know-how of the things I've learned about being a great leader, but I also wanted to share reflections, I call them joyful leadership reflections, of what it means to be a Christian leader. And I chose for this thought process the lens of the greatest commandment. Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." So how do I integrate these two things into my work? Know-how and what I believe to be true, the truth, with this lens of the greatest commandment. Okay, so next is a little bit of a spoiler alert in terms of what's in the book and where we're going to go today in talking about Christian leadership or leadership within the church. But just sort of a high level here. Why would anyone want to follow you? Because you're a person of great character who has these sort of 4 underlying skills or traits. You're excellent in all you do. You're trustworthy. I heard some of that there. You act with integrity on your values. In other words, you live out your values each and every day. And you live a lifestyle of what we call stewardship in the church. Time, talents, treasures. Does that sound familiar? It's that time of year, isn't it, Father? Time, talents, treasures.
It is.
And then in terms of serving your followers, Are you a servant leader who helps others become excellent in what they do? Are you able to give feedback? Here's the Christian concept with forgiveness, because often feedback has to be given because there was a breakdown in trust. Do you handle conflict well? Do you serve others by creating peace in the conflict? Being a peacemaker. And how does prayer play into that? And then the last of these is, how do you love the people that you serve? It's a little bit of a spoiler alert there, but next we're going to actually flesh this out just a little bit more. But before I do that, I have to return to the world of work again. So I'm asked to come in and do leadership training for different levels within an organization. Now, the first level I often do is what's called early high potential leadership development. So these are individual contributors who have a job. They don't manage anybody, but they, I'm asked to grow their leadership skills. Well, can you lead if you don't have a position of leadership? Absolutely. Absolutely. Leadership isn't always about a position, right? We have people that we will follow that are our peers. In corporations, there's people that if they buy into the idea, you can better bet the whole group's going to buy into the idea. And why is that? What are those, again, those essence of those people that even though you're my peer, I still follow your lead? And then, of course, there's the next level of leadership, which is now you've got direct reports. You've got a team of people that you've got to work with. So what skills am I going to develop in people leaders to do that? And then we got another level that they come and ask me to do. So now help me develop leadership in the people who have to manage managers. In other words, they're leading multiple teams, and now you've got a department or an organization that's coming from. Okay, so I'm just about done. I'm just about ready to turn it over to you. So we've got these concepts here, again, of know-how, of levels, and of character and excellence. So my model that I'm going to go over, and then we're going to apply it to our church's context here, has 3 core competencies of leadership. And within each of those core competencies, there is a core capability that the leader needs to master at that level before they move up in order to be successful at the next level of leadership. I.e., what do I have to master as an individual before I'm ready to lead a team? What do I have to master at that level to then move up to manage a whole department or direct a whole department? And then, so I've got 3 core competencies. And then within those core competencies, I have 4 core skills that help you develop that core competency. But here's the trick, folks. My model now has not just gone from 3 plus 4 plus 2. Are we at 12, Carol? Actually, we're going to stick with 3 plus 4 because those 4 things all sort of build on each other as we move up the framework. I call them the rebar of my framework because they create sort of this strength across the levels, and you can see how these, again, core skills get developed and modified a little bit as you move up. Okay, so here we go. Let me ask, is there any questions so far before I jump into, Again, so the framework we're going to discuss in a church context. Okay, no burning questions at the moment. All right, so here we go. I should have mentioned this. Sorry about that, since I forget what builds I have on my slide. Is it sort of obvious that a person of great character fits with loving God, and a person serving our followers is that second half of the greatest commandment, loving others. All right, here we go. 3 core skills of leadership. Let's start at the bottom. This is our individual contributor. What they need to learn to do well is, I call it lead yourself. And the core competency you've got to develop is being a person of integrity. What does integrity mean? You walk your talk, right? No hidden agendas in what this man said, right? Everything he said was the truth. There was nothing more. There was nothing less. He was full of integrity. What's the supporting skill? First one, excellence in what you do. How do we grow and continue to, now I'm going to go to more church terms, how do we find out what our God-given gifts are, because we all have them, our talents that we have to give? How do we know what they are? And not only know what they are, remember, know-how's not knowing is not enough. You've actually got to give that gift. You've actually got to use that gift to help get something solved, get something fixed, maybe to help another person. So, one core skill there. Second core skill that leads to your integrity is trust, or knowing how to, there's basically 6 facets of trust. You need to know how to build trust through those 6 facets. And oh, by the way, you also have to learn how to rebuild trust when it disappears, because we all make mistakes, we all screw up. How do we get trust between, basically firm reliance between ourselves and the other person? Now, these things are a little interconnected, because being excellent at what you do is actually one of the 6 core facets of trust, i.e. that you're capable. People trust you because you are capable. And oh, by the way, the last facet of trust is integrity, which again ties back to people trust you because you do what you do and what you say fits together. All right, next one is the concept of knowing what you value and living that out. So much so, remember integrity again, so much so that I can surmise what you value just by watching you. Just by walking around and following you, I can tell you, I could guess pretty accurately about what your values are. So this is another skill that on self-leadership we've got to master. And the final one, already hinted at this, is stewardship. God gives us many, many things in this life. Are we good at being good stewards of our resources, i.e. again, our time, our talents, and our treasures? So as I said, this is the individual contributor level of leadership. And I'm going to make the analogy here. This is what we all are, is a church member. So start to think for yourself. We actually aren't going to talk about this later in the breakout rooms, but just start to think for yourself. For me, as a member of Holy Cross, which one of these things do I need to develop in my leadership in order to be a better member of this church? Okay, so just start thinking about that for yourself in the back of the moment. All right. So, second level, I call lead others. And probably no surprise here, because now you've sort of seen character. Now you're going to see the word service. Leading others is now again when you've got people that you're responsible for. So, do you have that core capability of being a leader who knows how to serve the people that are given to their care? So on the stewardship level, right, now you not only have time, talents, and treasures, you've got the time, talents, and treasures of your people. And how do I help them be more functioning team members, more functioning church members? So here's where I want to show you how these skill sets that you've honed at the lead self level begin to take on a little different flavor as you move up or take on a different level of leadership. So excellence turns into coaching for growth. So think about it. If you don't know how to develop and use your own talents, how in the world are you going to be responsible for developing and coaching the talents and the gifts of the people that are on your team or in your ministry area? Trust, the skill of trust, building and rebuilding trust, then gets used in this service skill of giving people feedback that restores trust. As I said earlier, usually you have to give a person feedback because there's been a breakdown in trust. You can't rely on them anymore. Something's off here. So we've got to talk it through to rebuild, again, what I like to use for trust is this firm reliance on each other. So again, feedback that restores trust. So you've got to get that skill down. How do I do that? How do I do that? And again, values really comes into play. I don't know about you, but I've never been on a team, never worked with other individuals where there hasn't been some type of conflict. And conflict doesn't have to be a big thing. Conflict is just when two people don't see eye to eye. So we got to get to the place where we see eye to eye. So the idea here is, have you honed the skills based on your values that you can be a peacemaker in conflict because you bring out what people most care about and resolve it for what I like to call a win-win. Sounds good for both of us, but also with buy-in. A win-win with buy-in because we're bought into it at a values level. And then finally, stewardship. I mentioned this before. Now again, it's not your own time, talent, and treasures. You're now responsible for others' time, talent, and treasures. So how do you as a leader in service of them really get to know them as a human, as another person, and know what their values and what they're good at and what their time, again, talents and treasures in, and how do you nurture that, and how do you have that skill that you really know another individual at that level. So this level, again, in a corporate world, we're going to call the manager the supervisor. In a church context, I think we would need to call it a ministry leader, someone who's given a piece of the work of the church and have people helping them through that. All right, last one, probably the most complicated one, and that's why it's not in my book, because it was too complicated to write about. So I'm thinking about it. Maybe I'll have a part 2 someday. So the next level, now we're talking at a company director level, maybe 50 people, maybe 100 people. So you got teams and teams, and managers of those teams you're responsible for. The key skill at a director level is this concept of leading a change. And change is messy, change is complicated, it's never straightforward, it's never easy, it's never even clear. It's not a black and white thing. It's always very fuzzy. So as a leader of change, you've got to be really good at this core capability of polarity and managing the complexities, this almost the duality that comes with leading a change. Now you might ask me, don't managers lead a change? I would say no. I would say managers lead continuous improvement. Right? Let's fix this little process. Let's change it. Let's make it better. I'm talking whole scale change. We're here. We want to go there. In Holy Cross terms, we're busting at the seams. What do we do? How do we move forward? That's change. So, what are some of these polarities you have to learn to manage again in going back to my rebar or my threads through this? And I'll use a couple Holy Cross examples here. So the first area of polarity is, what are we changing? Well, when we want to change something, the polarity the leader has to deal with is both the past and the future. People act in the present, but they won't act if you don't do two things. Honor the past, don't throw out the past, honor the past, and envision the future. That's the tension you want to set up for people that we're moving through. Now this is very complicated, and let's, again, let me use a Holy Cross example here. So if the vision of the future is to move to a bigger building, well, how do we do that by honoring this building? Makes it complicated. In addition, if we think about this excellence piece, as this church grows from 100 and how many are showing up on a Sunday sometimes, Roxanne?
We're between 150 and 180 most Sundays.
So we're there. Move to a bigger building. Are we going to grow to 300? And with that change, do we have the skill sets within the membership to take on the new ministries? Feeding 300 people versus 120 people, after church. There's a lot of complexity here with making that change. All right, let me go a little bit faster because I want to give you guys time to talk. The other piece, moving up from trust and feedback, is how are we going to do this? Here again is a key polarity, because we got to move forward, but we need to stay flexible in how we do that. So we got to start moving, but as feedback comes up or something breaks down in trust, do you as the leadership have the communication channel that those things can get fed up through the system, heard, so that you can adapt and change? Because there's never just a path, clear path. You take a step, well, you might need to jump on. We learned something. We might need to modify. Okay, last two. Values. What's the polarity there? Well, any change has to make sense to both people's heads and their hearts, or they won't engage with you. They won't come along with you. So, does it make sense? Here's my head. To move to a bigger building? Yes, we're crammed in up there. But does it, as we move to a bigger building, does it weaken any of the values that we've held dear as a community in the past? What's going to change about the nature of Holy Cross if we move in this direction? And then finally, the last polarity is the who. Who's going to lead this change? And this is where the leaders need to understand that sometimes leadership is about followership. It's about getting behind the people that have the skills and the capabilities, supporting them. And you sort of lead from behind, not always lead from the front. All right, so that we might call, again, that director level. And again, we're going to talk priest and parish council. Now today in the car, I was thinking, but isn't there the level of the CEO, Carol? And what in the world do they do at that level? But I quickly dismissed it because Jesus Christ is the CEO of the church. So let's just not worry about that today. Whew, I'm not sure my brain could handle anyway, you know where I'm going. All right, so here's what I'd like to do for the remainder of our time is I want you all to talk about this. So I'm going to put this slide back up. But here's your task. I think we want to break into about 4 groups, so 4 or 5 people, because I want everybody to have a chance to sort of talk. And I'm going to give you 15 minutes to do this. So someone in the group, please, 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 be the timekeeper. And your job as the timekeeper is to divide the time between these 2 questions. So about 7 minutes on the first question set, 7 minutes on the second question set. And as the timekeeper, I would like you 1 minute before the time is up to just pause the conversation and make sure the spokesperson is ready to report back to the bigger group about what we're going to talk about. Now, here's why it's important to stop and figure that out. So, again, nominate your spokesperson early. But because of the number of people, I'm not going to be able to hear in-depth report out from every group, or we will be here till midnight. So every group is going to report out one thing that sort of bubbled to the surface. And then I'm going to go to the next group, and they're going to say one thing that bubbled to the surface. If you're the scribe, or the note taker, excuse me, same thing, I would like you to try to capture 3 things or 3 themes that the group discussed. And I would like you to write that legibly so that you can turn it into Father Joshua when we're done today. So please put the names of the people that were in the discussion and list sort of 3 key things we talked about. You're only going to get to report out on 1, but then again, at least you got, if they took mine, then I'll go to the second one, right? That's all good. All right, so these are the 2 questions. So, which of the lead others skills, I gotta go back. Oh, I forgot. We're operating it from that one. What did I just do?
It's behind your computer, Carol.
Thank you, because that one was mine. Which of the lead other skills do we need more in our ministry leaders? Now, if you are a ministry leader, today you are just a member of the church. Do not get defensive. Do not push back on what people are saying. You give your perspective as a member of what our ministry leaders need to do more of. And absolutely, is there anything you notice that they are really good at this? Let's mark that down too. And then the other half of the time, I'd like you to talk about, losing my voice here, the lead change skills. And same thing. Okay, questions. Boy, now I've really done it myself. Questions about what I'm asking you to do.
We have paper.
I've got some paper. I do, so I will get it. So all you need is paper and a pen. All right, no questions. I'm here, so you can always ask a question. Let's go, and I'll pass out the paper. So you need a timekeeper, you need a scribe, and you need a spokesperson. How about 2 sheets? Would that work?
Well, at least we got paper. Way there.
You might want to add a couple more.
Listen, yeah.
Decided now or You're a very happy camper. That's the positive. We're talking about the middle tier. First question was.
I'll go back and forth here. First question.
What do we want to see more of? What
Can you go back? Yeah. Oh, what are they already?
They're just checking the questions real quick, and then I'll go back.
Over there?
We need more.
I don't know if we have.
We're trying to figure out if we need to merge or not.
Are you down to 2? Merge. 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 Thank you for merge.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going back.
We're merging.
Thank you.
You're merging.
Yes.
Yeah, we were, okay. We were talking about coming here. It's woolen, yeah. Just want to listen to you. It's in the mosquito.
I would assume everything's just fine from those.
Maybe. That's not what I heard.
If you
It's a little bit of a tumultuous time sometimes.
You're welcome. Well, that's okay, I understand. It's right along the way. Yeah, well, I came 1,000 miles to do this, so I understand. So,
Yeah.
fortunately, it was someone else doing the flying, so I didn't. What did they do?
I mean, the church, what happened to the church? She said it was very, when she was in the paint.
Some of the okay, some of the best stuff I can say, I was making guesses.
Yeah, a little bit later on. But yeah. I would say that we're talking about
Oh, yeah.
So I think feedback is close to.
Feedback from whom?
He's actually holding the door. Yeah. Upstairs? Oh, in the truck out there. Gonna take a photo.
That's just administrative perspective, but that's something I don't like conflict, so I just kind of stay away from critiquing. Maybe it'd be beneficial to some people to give them positive feedback.
Who are like that. It's no problem. All three of us won't do it.
Conflict avoidance. So, peacemaker maybe is.
I don't know if,
I get it.
You're a grown up now.
Yeah, I think that really is.
Think about
Really
you.
something.
There's not a lot of
I'm not on that. But I don't know that there's necessarily,
You want to
kind of,
I'm thinking in terms
for example, step up is teach Sunday school. They really have to open
but there's not necessarily like private viewing museums or anything like that.
guess
I don't know if it's on the level where I don't know if I don't know if for like camping or I think that you guys were inside thinking about yourself as like a member of the
Sacred
Sacred Music Institute of Enchanters, kind of thing, so you know, like within their ministry.
So that goes back to
Slowly background and then further,
whether or not you're doing well. Stewardship also gives the vibe
that I
of,
think, I guess maybe something like,
as well, coach, and I
yes,
often
that would be feedback. I would be into like, training, especially like training or to help them grow, like,
I'll
I'll be the time, I would be.
And I'm about to,